Hello and welcome to the Remote Revolution, a podcast by Virtual Mojo. This is where we explore how modern businesses are transforming the way they work through remote teams, virtual support, and smarter operational strategies. In each episode, we bring you insights, conversations, and practical ideas to help entrepreneurs, leaders, and growing companies build efficient, scalable, and future-ready organizations. If you're looking to work smarter, scale faster, and unlock the power of remote talent, you're in the right place. Let's begin.
Welcome to Season 1, Episode 20 of the Remote Revolution, with your host Aneeq and Umaima as our guest. Today we're talking about how businesses can grow without constantly adding more people. We'll discuss the systems, processes, automation, and delegation strategies that help teams increase output, eliminate bottlenecks, and scale efficiently as they grow.
Yeah, and we have an incredible stack of material to go through today.
We really do. To figure all of this out, we're doing a deep dive into some pretty fascinating research. We've got a recent Harvard Business Review study on bottleneck management, a really detailed white paper on remote delegation frameworks, and a few post-mortem case studies from startups that basically scaled way too fast and crashed.
It is a massive stack of material, and synthesizing it all, really forces a complete reevaluation of how modern companies are actually built.
Oh, 100%. Like, picture the scenario because, it happens every single day. A company hits its highest revenue quarter ever. The champagne is popped.
But behind the scenes, the team is just completely drowning.
Exactly. Support tickets are piling up. Onboarding is a total mess. And the founder hasn't slept a full night in like 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah. We see that all the time.
Right. And the immediate knee-jerk reaction, and we need to adopt a slightly controversial stance on this today, is to scream, "We need more bodies. Get recruiters on the phone right now."
Which is such a natural instinct.
It is. But looking at the data in front of us, hiring more people is often a lazy, incredibly expensive Band-Aid for terrible business processes.
Yeah, the research totally backs up that controversial stance. We suffer from something called complexity bias.
Complexity bias. What does that look like in this context?
Well, our brains naturally prefer a complex, tangible solution. So like interviewing, hiring, and paying a whole new human being.
Right. That feels like you're taking real action.
Exactly. It feels more real than a simple but invisible solution, like just fixing a broken workflow. Plus, founders often treat headcount as this vanity metric.
Or definitely. Like, if I have 50 employees, I must be way more successful than the founder with 5.
Yep. But the math they are using there is fundamentally flawed. They look at a doubling of revenue or client volume and just assume, well, that requires a linear doubling of staff.
Wait, let me push back on that a little bit. If the sheer volume of work is actually doubling and the current team is logging, 60-hour weeks just to keep their heads above water, freezing the hiring process just sounds kind of cruel, doesn't it?
I completely get that.
Like, are you supposed to just sit there and let the team burn out?
No, not at all. But you have to separate the concept of valuable work from operational friction.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. Most overworked teams are not actually spending 60 hours a week executing high-value tasks. They're spending maybe 30 hours doing the actual work and another 30 hours navigating a maze of disorganized communication.
Like hunting down missing files and waiting on approvals.
Exactly. So if you hire a new person into that environment, you aren't relieving the pressure. You're just adding another person to the traffic jam.
That makes total sense. You aren't solving the broken spreadsheet problem. You're just paying more people to stare at a broken spreadsheet.
Precisely. You have to optimize the workflow and strip out the friction before you can even measure if you're actually understaffed.
And looking at the HBR study we're digging into, it seems the biggest source of that operational friction is almost always sitting right in the corner office, the founder.
Yeah, the founder or the core leadership team. Over time, these companies build this architecture where every major decision, every unique client request, and every final sign-off is routed through one person.
It's like building a 6-lane superhighway, but forcing all the traffic through a single-lane toll booth.
Right.
It doesn't matter how fast the cars are, the toll booth dictates the speed of the entire system.
That is the exact mechanism of the founder bottleneck. The business physically cannot scale beyond the 24 hours in that leader's day.
So how does a founder know if they are that single-lane toll booth?
Well, there's a very practical thing to try this week from the sources. It's called the disappear for a week test.
Okay, I love the sound of this already. How does it work?
You mentally simulate or literally execute, just vanishing for 7 days. No Slack, no email, no phone calls.
And you just see what breaks first.
Exactly. Do invoices stop going out? Does marketing completely freeze because you aren't there to approve the copy?
Man, if the answer is yes, then your company isn't really a business. It's just a heavily leveraged job.
Yeah, a job you can never leave.
But if the founder does successfully remove themselves from that toll booth, it creates this massive vacuum. How does a team know what to do without a leader constantly pointing them in the right direction?
That vacuum has to be filled by the system. And the architecture of that system is documentation.
Okay, let's talk about documentation, because I know just hearing the phrase standard operating procedures makes people want to throw their phones out the window.
I know, it sounds so incredibly boring.
It really does. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. It sounds like reading a toaster manual, but it's actually the DNA of the company. Because we all know what an SOP is. But in most companies, they are just these dead PDFs rotting in a shared Google Drive that no one has looked at since orientation.
Which is exactly why they fail. The case studies highlight a crucial shift here. Successful remote and scaled teams don't treat documentation as an employee handbook.
What do they treat it as?
They treat it as living code. It is the genetic material that allows the business to actually replicate its success without you.
Living code.
Yeah, but the mistake people make is sitting down to write an SOP before they actually understand what the process is. You have to map the workflow first.
So you're talking about value stream mapping, right?
Yes.
Taking a magnifying glass to the actual journey a task takes.
Precisely. You don't just write down step 1, step 2. You track a specific piece of work, say onboarding a new client, and you map every single touch point.
Like who touches it, where does it sit, waiting for approval, all that.
Exactly. In one of our bootstrapped case studies, this company mapped their onboarding and realized a new account sat idle for 4 days on average.
4 days. Just sitting there.
Yep. And why? Because the sales team had to request server space from the IT manager, who only checked those requests on Fridays.
Oh, wow. A 4-day delay for essentially a 5-second button click.
Exactly. And if they hadn't mapped it out, they probably would have just hired another customer success manager to apologize to clients for the delay.
That's crazy. They would have hired someone just to mask the friction.
It happens all the time. When you map the process, you are actively hunting for those loops, the back and forths, and the unnecessary permission gates.
Right.
Once you flatten that out and remove the friction, then you document the streamlined version.
So what does this all mean for the listener who, frankly, hates writing SOPs? What are the most actionable things to try here to build this living code?
Start with the 80-20 rule. What are the 20% of tasks that consume 80% of your team's routine time?
That makes it a lot less overwhelming.
Right. And please don't write a textbook. Use technology. Have your team record a Loom video or do a screen share while they do the task, explaining their thought process out loud.
Oh, that is so much easier.
Then you just transcribe it, turn it into a checklist, and put it where the work actually happens.
Where the work happens, like not in a master folder somewhere.
Exactly. An SOP shouldn't be in a separate Google Drive. It should be linked directly inside the project management ticket.
Wow, so it shifts the business from accidental success to intentional consistency.
It turns a chaotic collection of talented individuals into a reliable, predictable machine.
So let's follow the logical progression here. You audit the founder, you map the value stream, and you build the living code.
Right.
Now, the modern temptation, and the tech industry pushes this so hard, is to immediately throw an AI tool or some shiny new software at the newly documented process.
Oh, this is the automation trap, and it is exactly where companies hemorrhage cash.
Wait, really? But automation is supposed to save you money?
It's incredibly powerful, yes, but automation is entirely agnostic. It doesn't care if a process is good or bad, it just executes it faster.
Ah, I see where this is going.
If you automate an inefficient, friction-heavy process, you haven't solved anything. You have just used technology to help you make mistakes at an industrial scale.
I love that. Automating a bad process is literally like putting a jet engine on a unicycle.
That is a terrifyingly accurate visual.
You aren't going to win the race, you're just going to crash at max speed.
Exactly. I mean, human beings, for all our flaws, we have a natural pacing. When a human is executing a bad process, they naturally pause when something looks wrong. They double check.
Right, that's flag it.
But automation removes that pause completely. So the golden rule in our sources is unyielding. Process first, technology second.
Let's get highly specific for the listener. Where's the safe zone for this? If they want to test automation today, what tasks are the prime targets?
The prime targets are the high-volume, low-variance administrative burdens, moving data from a web form into a CRM,
generating recurring invoices, things like that.
Exactly. Routing inbound leads to the correct salesperson based on territory. Scheduling reminders.
Right.
These are areas where human error is high because the work is mind-numbing, but human judgment is practically zero.
Yeah, I definitely don't need my senior creative director manually copy-pasting email addresses into a spreadsheet.
Not only do you not need it, it's a massive misallocation of resources. You automate the routine so you can elevate the human.
I like that. So where do we aggressively protect human judgment from this whole automation wave?
You fiercely protect tasks that require empathy, nuance, high-level strategic reasoning, or complex relationship building.
So you don't automate a client apology.
No, and you don't automate a strategic pivot.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But even when companies figure out that boundary, they usually stumble right into software hoarding, don't they?
Oh, size sprawl. It is an epidemic in modern business.
Tool overload.
Yes. The department encounters a specific bottleneck, so they just buy a specialized software subscription to fix it. Then another problem pops up, and they buy another tool.
Fast forward a year, and the marketing team is using Asana. The dev team is isolated in Jira.
The sales team lives in Salesforce, and the leadership team is trying to wrangle it all in Slack and email.
The data silos just get taller. You think you're building a tech stack, but you're actually just building a digital labyrinth where no one knows where the truth lives.
Exactly. And the team ends up spending more time managing the tools like updating statuses in 3 different places than executing the actual work.
So what's a highly actionable thing to try here to fix that?
A software audit. Map out a Venn diagram of all your paid tools. You will almost certainly find massive overlap. Simplify the stack and force departments to work within a unified ecosystem.
Okay, so a company dodges the automation trap. They streamline their tech stack. They have optimized workflows.
Sounds perfect so far.
But they still have humans doing that high-level nuanced work we talked about. And as the company scales, say from 5 people to 20, the way those humans interact fundamentally shatters.
It really does.
Why does the culture and the communication style of a tiny startup suddenly become so toxic when they add just 15 more people?
It all comes down to network mathematics.
Okay, lay some math on us.
When you have a 5-person team, there is a shared hive mind. If you are all in one room or one small chat channel, everyone overhears everything.
You all share the exact same context.
Exactly, but there is an actual mathematical formula for communication channels. It's the number of nodes multiplied by the number of nodes minus 1 divided by 2.
Wait, walk us through the math on that practically.
Sure. With 5 people, you have 10 possible lines of communication. It's easy to manage. But when you scale to 20 people, you don't just have 4 times the communication.
How many is it?
You suddenly have 190 different lines of communication.
Now, another 90.
Yep. The complexity scales exponentially, not linearly.
So the informal system just snaps. If I need to know the status of a project, and my only strategy is hoping Dave is online and remembers to Slack me back.
Right. The entire operation is built on hope.
And hope is a terrible operational strategy.
It really is. Information should never depend on who happens to be available at that exact second. And this exponential complexity is also why delegation completely falls apart as teams grow.
Let's dissect delegation, because frankly, isn't delegation often just a polite term for dumping your workload onto your team so you can go play golf?
Exactly. Which is why employees resent it so much, and why managers think their team is incompetent when the work comes back wrong.
It's the difference between passing a baton smoothly in a relay race versus just chucking the baton at the next runner's head and hoping they catch it.
That is a perfect analogy. What you are describing isn't delegation, it is abdication. Abdication is handing someone a task and just walking away.
So what is true delegation then?
Delegation is the intentional transfer of responsibility, not just tasks.
How do you practically make that transfer? How do you hand over responsibility without micromanaging them to death?
The white paper on remote delegation frameworks we reviewed outlines 4 non-negotiable pillars for this.
Let's hear them.
First, clear outcomes. You don't just tell them what to do, you define what a successful end state looks like.
Makes sense.
Second, documented processes. You provide that living code we discussed so they aren't guessing at the methodology.
Right.
Third, defined ownership. Who is the single throat to choke if this goes wrong?
Ah, single throat to choke. I like that.
And fourth, measurable expectations. How will both of you objectively know if it is on track before the final deadline?
A brilliant framework I saw recently that ties into this is the 10-80-10 rule. Have you come across that?
I have, yeah. It perfectly illustrates the manager's role in that transfer of responsibility.
For the listener, the 10-80-10 rule works like this.
Yeah.
The manager does the first 10% of the project. You set the vision, define the parameters, provide the resources, and explain the why. Then, you get out of the way and let the team execute the middle 80%. That is their domain. They figure out the how within the boundaries you set.
Exactly.
Finally, the manager steps back in for the final 10% to review, polish, and ensure it hits the standard.
It's so effective because it prevents the two most common failures.
Which are?
The manager who micromanages the middle 80%, completely destroying morale. And the manager who skips the first 10%, offers zero guidance, and then rips the project apart at the end because it wasn't what they pictured in their head.
So what happens when a company completely ignores this math? They don't track the network nodes, they abdicate instead of delegate, and they just keep pouring venture capital money into hiring 50 new people.
Well, what does the disaster actually look like?
Yeah, what are the warning signs?
They experience what they will incorrectly label as growing pains. But they aren't pains, they are structural fractures in the foundation.
Wow.
You see highly predictable symptoms, error rates spike on routine tasks, turnaround times stretch from days into weeks.
And I imagine customer complaints surge because the quality just drops.
Exactly. Because the sheer volume of work is putting pressure on a brittle, undocumented system.
And internally, the culture shifts to constant firefighting. Every day is a new emergency that requires an all-hands-on-deck response.
Which leads directly to severe employee burnout and totally overwhelmed leadership.
Let's pause and look in the mirror for a second here. If you are listening to this, think about your own week. Are you treating that constant firefighting like a badge of honor?
A lot of founders do.
Are you bragging about how many late-night disasters you heroically averted? It might be time to realize that firefighting isn't a sign of your indispensable genius. It's a glaring symptom of your broken operational foundation.
It's a very tough reality check for leaders who derive their self-worth from being the hero. But to maintain quality at scale, you have to transition from being the hero to being the architect.
And architects rely on evidence and data.
Yes. The sources are heavily focused on this idea of evidence-based capacity tracking. You have to understand your system's current capacity before you pour more water into it.
So you need to know where the time is actually being spent.
Exactly. If you don't track how long it takes your current team to execute the optimized value stream, you are flying blind.
Right.
You might think you need 3 new hires, when in reality, if you removed the software friction and clarified the delegation, your current team might only be at 60% capacity.
That entirely flips the script on what a successful company looks like.
Yeah.
The old model was pure headcount. The skyscraper with the most desks won.
It was. But looking at the shift toward remote frameworks, it seems like the leverage has completely changed.
So it's totally possible that the biggest companies might lose to tiny, hyper-efficient remote teams.
Absolutely. Remote structures force you to be disciplined. You can't just tap someone on the shoulder to get an answer. You have to build a system where the answer is already accessible. And because of that enforced discipline, scalability no longer comes from headcount. It comes from leverage.
Leverage over labor.
Yes. Think of it like Archimedes' lever, a single employee, armed with optimized processes, a unified tech stack, and smart automation can manage a workload that used to require an entire department.
Which leads us to the core synthesis of this entire deep dive today. Sustainable, intelligent growth does not come from throwing more human bodies into the meat grinder of bad processes.
Could not have said it better.
Hiring should never be your primary growth strategy. It is simply a resource allocation made after you have maxed out your system's leverage.
You audit your workflows, you map the value streams to hunt down friction, and you translate your successful processes into living code.
You smartly automate the administrative burdens while fiercely protecting human judgment.
Exactly. And you build communication and delegation frameworks that rely on mathematics and clear outcomes, not just hope and proximity.
It is about building a well-oiled machine that serves your team, instead of forcing your team to constantly run around fixing a broken machine.
That's exactly right.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over.
Always my favorite part.
If technology, AI, and ironclad systems continue to exponentially replace the need for headcount, what does the ideal company of the future actually look like? Could we eventually see massive billion-dollar enterprises run by a core team of just 3 people? Just 3 people, and a perfectly tuned global empire of automated systems and remote leverage.
That is a fascinating thought.
It really is. Something to seriously think about the next time you sit down to write a job description for a role you might not actually need. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today.
It was a pleasure to be here.
Until next time, keep looking for the leverage.
Thank you for listening to The Remote Revolution. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and share it with other professionals who are building the future of work. To learn more about how Virtual Mojo helps businesses grow with highly trained virtual assistants and remote support teams, visit www.virtualmojo.com. For inquiries or collaborations, reach out to us at contact@virtualmojo.com. Until next time, keep building smarter systems and embracing the future of work.